Arkansas fires Sam Pittman. Owen's got your week 6 bets in Broadway Books, and North Dakota State keeps rolling at 4-0. It's all on episode 10 of Broadway to Broadway. On this 10th episode of Broadway to Broadway, Arkansas pulls the plug on Sam Pittman as the Razorbacks hit reset in Fayetteville. Then it's time for Broadway Books, where Owen rolls out his best betting picks for week 6 of college football as he stays on a roll like Sabret. And in the FCS, the Bison keep stampeding. The North Dakota State Bison open 4-0 as the defending champs keep charging ahead. All that and more right here on Broadway to Broadway. I'm Wyatt Kopelman. My co-host is Owen Kasanovich. We're delighted to have you aboard as always. Already episode 10, can you believe it? And the NL, AL wildcard games are underway as of yesterday. Owen, let's start in Fayetteville, where Arkansas has fired Sam Pittman. It's the end of an era for the Hogs and the start of a whole new search.
Yeah, Pittman had a tough time at Arkansas. I mean, he had some success and then had some bad times as well. Just could never really get it going. And I know his post-game comments before he was fired last week were, well, you Arkansas fans are frustrated. They don't think I'm frustrated. Like, I want this program to succeed. Unfortunately, never could really get off the ground. I'm kind of surprised that they pulled the plug after a loss to Notre Dame, a good Notre Dame team, instead of maybe like a bad loss per se to like a group of five. Because if Arkansas would have continued with Pittman this year and he goes 4-8, it would have lowered his buyout to 6.9 million, a little less than 7 million, as opposed to firing him now. He's owed the full 9.6 billion. So interesting decision there from Arkansas. But Bobby Petrino, interim coach, he's already made a handful of changes when it relates to the coaching staff. So I'll be interested to see how this Razorbacks program can move forward with the once Bobby Petrino head coach of the Razorbacks. So maybe he could get a second chance if he finishes the season out strong there with Arkansas.
I was sitting in the studio at Learfield at my job as I produced the NC State broadcast on Saturday, and I watched the Notre Dame calamity unfold, at least for Arkansas. Jeremiah Love, I'd figured he'd own at least part of the end zone for Arkansas there with how much real estate he had for himself that day. I'd figure he had at least partial custody there because he had 4 touchdowns in the first half, 2 on the catch, 2 on the run, as we talked about on Second Down Sunday. And I said to one of my colleagues how it would make more sense if Arkansas fired Pittman after a loss to a team like Middle Tennessee State or another FCS or even a group of 5 as opposed to Notre Dame, which Arkansas obviously wouldn't stack up with the fact that Notre Dame has better schematics. Notre Dame has better offense right now. I don't see how that would have made sense. Let's go into another big headline that has caught at least the attention of those around the ACC. The Virginia Cavaliers crack the top 25 for the first time since their 2019 Orange Bowl run. Oh, and I know that Florida State didn't look its best in that first half. It put up a great contest going into that second overtime. A juggling, incompleted catch, rather, that I thought could have been a touchdown from initial look, but then all of a sudden Virginia wins that game, and what a momentum shift for Tony Elliott now with this Cavaliers program.
100%. A huge, huge win for Tony Elliott. I mean, yeah, he hasn't had a whole lot of success at Virginia, and there's some experts saying that he could be on the hot seat prior to a big win like this. I couldn't see that. I mean, Elliott's been a pretty solid coach for Virginia through his first couple of years there. And to get a win like this, I think Elliott will stay at Virginia for probably another 2 years, in my personal opinion, with a win like that. And again, Virginia's in the top 25. They're sitting at number 24. They got a big road game this week. I think they could hang with Louisville. I think they might even win that game on the road, albeit being a touchdown underdog. We'll see that in Broadway Books later, a little tease there. But I really like this Virginia team. And Chandler Morris is a veteran quarterback. We saw him do it with his arm. We saw him do it with his legs against Florida State. And Florida State had no answer for Virginia's rushing attack, who's one of the best in the country. And we really saw that unfold this past weekend. So it'll be interesting to see if Virginia can keep up this momentum and not slip up with a big road game against Louisville.
Did you watch the Orange Bowl in 2019, Virginia and Florida down at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens?
I cannot say that I remember that game, unfortunately, but for Virginia to make an Orange Bowl appearance in 2019, that is something special in of itself. So it looks like this program's building towards something if they can keep it going. But no, I do not remember that 2019 Orange Bowl, unfortunately.
What an individual performance for Bryce Perkins, the former Virginia quarterback. He hooked up with Hasise Dubois for a touchdown. Dubois was a standout wide receiver out of New Jersey, and Perkins ended up throwing for almost 350 yards, but Florida's run game a little bit too much. Michael Pirine had the game-opening touchdown for the Gators that game, and it looked like Florida was every bit like the team that had just missed the college football playoff that year. The Gators win that one against Virginia, and going into next season had a lot of momentum. That season, Kyle Trask led Florida, and he played quite well against Virginia that game. Another big headline, no letdown in Fargo so far. The Bison stays perfect out of the gate. I like to think that this is a team that can repeat as FCS national champions, defeated Montana State, previously undefeated Montana State last year, and now this is a team that seems to have a lot of momentum at 4-0.
Yeah, Cole Payton and this NDSU defense have been off to a fantastic start. The defense has played outstanding. There's some other teams. I look in this FCS as well. You got undefeated South Dakota State 4-0, Tarleton State at 5-0. Again, their big upset win against Army week 1. That doesn't look so shocking now. And then Montana 4-0. So there's some teams that are undefeated in this FCS. We could see some fireworks. But I think North Dakota State has to be the favorite right now, the way Cole Payton is playing at quarterback for this Bison team.
We move on to something that we don't talk about very often with this being primarily a college sports podcast. Major League Baseball has already started its postseason. National League wildcard, American League wildcard has definitely brought more interesting starts to fall baseball every year, Owen, since the inception of the 3-game wildcard series. A lot of well-pitched games yesterday on the first day of this Major League Baseball postseason. Cleveland, Detroit, a 3-1 finish. New York, Boston, a 3-1 finish. Then you look at a couple of other great games as well. The Dodgers hammered the Reds, really one of the only offensive outbursts of the game, or of the day rather. Which game did you like watching the most?
That's a tough question. I mean, how can you not, you start with the Tigers and Guardians who were battling for the division. Obviously, the Tigers crazy collapse, losing a 15.5 game lead that led to the Guardians getting the wild card series at home as a 3 seed versus the Tigers sneaking in there. But how can you not go with Tarek Skubal's 14 strikeouts, just going dominant performance? I mean, the Tigers limping essentially into this series after finishing that regular season, getting the day off Monday to come out and play Tuesday and to just put it together and have their ace, Tarek Skubal, perform the way he did. That gives the Tigers a lot of confidence, and the Tigers are only going to go as far as Tarek Skubal will pitch like that, like the ace that he is, Cy Young in the AL for sure. The other game I enjoyed watching was the Red Sox Yankees. I thought that one, how can you not? It's always fireworks when those two teams get together, and I really enjoyed watching that one. Some say I was listening to ESPN this morning. I rarely like to listen to shows like First Take or whatever, but it's so rare when Stephen A. Smith on his show talks baseball. And being an avid Yankee Knicks fan, New Yorker, did not like the decision that Aaron Boone made pulling Max Fried there after 6 1/3, getting him out and going to Luke Weaver. And the Yankees bullpen, unfortunately, let them down again in game 1. We'll have to see if they bounce back this afternoon.
Did you expect Cleveland to make a non-force out play on Jose Ramirez as the tying run at third?
I definitely think Jose messed that up a little bit. I mean, I know you got the contact play, but I think Jose, I think he misread it. I think he thought that ball was going to get over the head of the pitcher there, and it unfortunately did not, and he was picked off at third. I'm not going to say Ramirez didn't put enough effort in to try to allow the runner to get to second on that play, but unfortunately, that was a cost Cleveland because all you needed there was a sack fly with one out there to get the tying runner in Ramirez there. And unfortunately, the Guardians could not capitalize. But that's what the postseason comes down to, right? We're going to see it for the next 3 weeks, the next month here, that whoever executes those situations, those crucial situations, runner on third, one out, can score with runners in scoring position, can pitch, do the little things essentially right to win, is probably going to be the team or teams that advance in this postseason.
All right, it's time for this week's edition of the short list. The games at the Power Four level you absolutely need to have circled for your Saturday. Oh, and let's start in the Big 12. Iowa State junior quarterback Rocco Becht threw for 243 yards against Arizona, 25-point win for the Cyclones. He tied for his best QB rating this season. Matt Campbell has taken a ton of credit from the Big 12 media as well as national analysts. Cincinnati, meanwhile, won by 3 against Kansas, despite giving up nearly 450 passing yards to Jalen Daniels. Which team has the upper hand here?
Both these teams are very evenly matched, but one matchup I'm looking at is, you wouldn't think this, but Cincinnati is a top 10 passing offense in the nation, in the country. So I'm really looking at this Brendan Sorsby led offense for Cincinnati versus the secondary for Iowa State. They picked off Noah Fafita twice last week in their big win at home against Arizona. So that's a matchup I'm really looking at. And Cyrus Allen is an X factor for Cincinnati. This wide receiver had a phenomenal day last week, really got whatever he wanted against the Kansas secondary. So it should be interesting to see how this matchup goes. But I'm going to have Iowa State. I think Iowa State is just a better overall team. I think they'll be able to get a stop. And I think Iowa State wins this one by a field goal on the road.
A field goal on the road. Wow, that is quite the matchup. And Texas Tech against Houston. Let's think about Texas Tech's upgrades. They got Romello Height as one of their offseason transfer portal additions on its D-line. Seems to have paid off, as now the Red Raiders have one of the top 15 scoring offenses and scoring defenses. They're only one of 5 teams in the country with that. How much would a win over 2-0 Houston in the Big 12 help the Red Raiders right now?
Would continue to build their momentum, right? I mean, Texas Tech absolutely dismantled Utah on the road, even with their starting quarterback Baron Morton going out in that game. So we'll have to see if, with Morton's not 100%, if Will Hammond could continue to play the way he did in that second half against Utah last week. And I've loved Texas Tech. I think this team, you mentioned the transfer portal going big. This defense has been dominant. I think Texas Tech rolls Houston. I think they cover the spread at 10.5. I think they win by 2 touchdowns against Houston. Houston struggled last week in their game against Oregon State, and Connor Weigman's a good quarterback, but I got to go with Texas Tech's defense. I think their defense will be too much for Houston to handle.
Houston only won by a field goal against Oregon State, and that's a team that is relatively on the heels of its wire-to-wire loss against Oregon as well. So does Houston go 2-1? Well, you could find out this weekend. Great matchups coming your way in the Big 12. And how about Vanderbilt heading into Tuscaloosa to face Alabama? Oh, and the Tide isn't exactly the heavy favorites here, with Vanderbilt's 5-0 start to the year for the first time since 2008. How do you think Clark Lee's 21st ranked defense stacks up against quarterback Ty Simpson?
Yeah, that's gonna be an interesting matchup, right? Because Alabama doesn't really run the ball. I mean, they got Jam Miller involved last week in that game against Georgia, but Vandy's got a good run D, so it'll be interesting to see how that matchup works out too. And I think the biggest factor too is, a lot of people are gonna say Vandy's gonna get blown out, especially after the way they handled Alabama at home in last year's matchup. So Alabama's definitely out for revenge, but I think Diego Pavia and this offense can keep it close. Obviously, they're going to have to take care of the ball, but you look at this Alabama run defense, it has been suspect. Florida State ran all over them. Georgia, they only had 170 pass yards last week. They ran the ball very effectively, but just could not convert in the red zone and didn't have many chances. And a clutch stop from Alabama was ultimately the deciding factor last week in that Bama Georgia game. But if Vandy can take care of the ball, convert third downs, and have success running the ball, and I gotta have confidence in Diego Pavia playing clean. I mean, he seems to just play excellent in big games like this. We've seen it now in the 5-0 start this year. So I'm gonna say Vandy can keep it close. I think Alabama wins, but I would not be shocked if Vandy covers the 10.5 that the spread is in this game.
Would you be surprised if Vanderbilt won at home if this game was actually in Tennessee?
I would not be surprised. I mean, I think the support that Vandy got last year in that game, and you know, obviously it was a large Alabama crowd, and the stadium's under construction there. But Vandy fans showed out, and I think now they have even a better reason to would go to that game again if it was at home. It's a huge game and you know, a top 20 showdown with Vandy being ranked 16th versus 10th ranked Alabama. I don't think a lot of people saw this, but no, I think if this game was at home for Vandy, I could definitely see them winning. They got the home at you know the home field per se, but you know, at home you're not going to make mistakes. You're going to be able to utilize your snap count and all that. So going on the road, the nice part is Pavi is an experienced quarterback. So I think Vandy could win this game if it were at home for sure.
And what a matchup coming our way between Texas and Florida. Longhorns, they're fighting to stay in the playoff conversation just in their SEC opener with a quarterback who was an SEC frontrunner and now doesn't seem to be even within a shadow of that kind of conversation. Gators, meanwhile, are hunting for a signature win. They only scored 10 on the road against number 3 LSU. What stands out to you here about the struggles between those two quarterbacks?
Well, struggles in that. Arch Manning's picked it up as of late, albeit against some less dominant competition. I think it just all comes back for DJ Lagway, the fact that he did not have a lot of time in training camp. I know our first couple episodes we talked about Florida and Lagway specifically missing a lot of time in training camp due to those injuries, and I think that's really what it comes down to. And now Florida's at home in this one. Texas is you know, favored by a touchdown. And you know, I think Florida could get their offense going this week. I do. I think this game is going to be more high scoring than people think. I really do. I think both offenses are going to put up 20 plus points in this one. I think Lagway finally shows what we all know he has in his tank with his athletic ability and ability to throw the ball. I mean, he's a very talented quarterback. You know, he's not that high ranked of a dual threat QB for nothing. So I think Lagway puts on a good performance. I don't think Florida wins. I think Texas wins, but I would not be shocked if both these quarterbacks in Lagway and Arch Manning play better in this one. And obviously, that Florida defense has not been the problem. So that's going to be something to watch for. And Texas, of course, is very highly touted. They got athletes on both sides of the ball. So it's going to be a fun game. And I think it'll be closer than people think.
And next up, a rivalry game down in the Sunshine State, Miami and Florida State. Oh, and the Hurricanes seem to have the edge on paper, especially as it relates to their front seven, two great defensive ends that have racked up a ton of tackles for loss already this season. But do the Seminoles have a real shot at shaking things up at home in Tallahassee coming up, the upset loss in Charlottesville?
There's the key right there, an upset loss. So you know Florida State's going to be ready to hit the field this coming Saturday against their rival in Miami. You know, that FSU run defense got gashed against Virginia. You know, we just got done talking about Virginia a couple segments ago and how good they looked against this Florida State defense. If this Florida State defense doesn't show up versus the run, Mark Fletcher could have a field day against this FSU defense. And again, another key too would be Carson Beck, albeit, you know, he had 2 interceptions in their game last week or a couple weeks ago against the South Florida Bulls. But if Carson Beck can play clean and not make mistakes, I think that adds another element too on the road here. You can't make mistakes and expect to win all the time. So I'm looking for Carson Beck to put together a clean game, not make mistakes. And, you know, I think this game is going to be very up tempo with Tommy Castellanos and this, you know, Carson Beck led Miami offense. You're going to see a lot of up tempo. You're going to see, you know, quick to the line of scrimmage and from that standpoint. But I think the ultimate X factor is that Miami pass rush. I think they'll be able to get after Castellanos and will not be able to. FSU won't be able to put together as good as a performance as they like. That Miami pass rush has been very potent so far this year, and I see it again. And I think this game is close. It's going to be a one possession game. It's going to come down to who gets that first takeaway, who gets that first turnover. If FSU commits that first turnover, that puts Miami in the driver's seat, in my opinion. But if FSU is able to, you know, get a couple of turnovers from Carson Beck in that offense, I feel like FSU is primed for a bounce back win.
Everybody talks about how much of a quarterback matchup this could be, but I think back to even looking at how Miami got home to Charlie Ward in the games those two teams played in the 90s. Of course, Ward went on to not exactly play football for a career, but he played basketball actually for the New York Knicks and helped lead that Knicks team to a 99 NBA Finals run as a Cinderella 8 seed. But I think about how these two teams used to have so much to go back and forth with, and this was a little bit before even Ken Dorsey and this Miami team that won in 2001. But what a game this could be if Castellanos and Beck could both play cleanly with the football and the running back rooms don't fumble it at all.
100%. Yeah, it's going to be a great showdown. And Florida State off a loss is going to be hungry playing against Miami. They definitely want to spoil their great start to their season.
Owen, we move on to walking the dogs. This is a weekend that had a ton of outstanding performances. I'm sure you had at least 3 or 4 in mind, but we'll go with 2 for now. First up for me in walking the dogs, the best individual performances from week 5 in college football. I have Oregon sophomore quarterback Dante Moore, 3 touchdowns, a game-winning drive in Happy Valley. Tell me why that's dog of the week material.
Because Dante Moore might be the best quarterback at Oregon since Marcus Mariota and Dylan Gabriel. I can't leave out Dylan Gabriel. He
Of
was
course
really
not.
good for Oregon. So yeah, I mean, when Dan Lanning says like Dante Moore is the leader of our team, he might be the best QB at Oregon since Mariota. He's got to be player of the week, right? I mean, crazy performance against Penn State.
It was a crazy performance against Penn State and probably the hallmark one that could solidify his Heisman campaign if he replicates this kind of performance, because what you do in front of over 111,000 people in the same tenure of James Franklin that has not seen him win big games at home, and the Ducks were the team that prevailed, and they definitely needed to go to overtime to do it, but a game-winning drive. I mean, that sets up a ton for being in the likes of Jeremiah Love, Jeremiah Smith, a couple of other great quarterbacks that are having some great performances in the country. Love, the top running back right now for sure, besides Fletcher, as you mentioned earlier. I think Smith is still in the conversation as well. And now let's turn to the ground game. Meanwhile, this is not a power 4 performance by any means, but this caught my eye for sure. Memphis redshirt senior running back Greg DeRozier Jr. ran for 204 yards, 3 scores, including a 90-yard bolt against Florida Atlantic. How much do you see that as a standout performance?
That's huge. Anytime a running back makes a big play like that, he deserves some attention. So I'm happy to put a guy like that in the conversation, especially coming from a group of 5 program that doesn't get a lot of attention sometimes. Memphis is playing great in the American Conference. They could be a threat in that conference with a lot of teams performing well in that conference.
All right, Owen, it's over to you. Spotlight on Broadway to Broadway. The stage, you take it. Which are your 2 dogs to walk here?
Well, we talked about Virginia a lot, so I think you know where I'm going with this one. Albeit he threw 3 interceptions, but I got to go with Chandler Morris. I think a quarterback that leads an upset victory over a top 10 team at home deserves some spotlight. He had 2 touchdown passes, also ran in another, so 3 total touchdowns for Chandler Morris. So he's one of my big time players of the week or big dog of the week. My other is Ty Simpson from Alabama. The performance he had against Georgia, he's on a special heater right now. I mean, the way he's played these last 3 games, but again, a rushing touchdown, a couple passing touchdowns against Georgia. Just Alabama never trailed. He was the leader of this team for the offense. Another spectacular performance for Ty Simpson. So those are my two walking the dogs, my big time dogs of the week, if you will. And so we'll see who comes out on top next week for next episode and for episode 11 and week 6. So it's got a lot of big time performers, and I mean the Heisman conversation too is just going to be getting started. So definitely some names to pull from that as well.
2 great dog picks, and one of them was at the expense of Kirby Smart's Georgia Bulldogs. Alabama looks like Alabama again, especially that 17-point second quarter. Ty Simpson gets that team a crucial win at Sanford Stadium. Well, let's also think a little bit about what we're going to talk about here on NFL Blitz, right? These are some great games behind us now. I want to start actually with a Monday Night Football game, Owen. I know you got to see this. Bo Nix, you talk about Oregon quarterbacks that impressed this week at the college level. Well, Bo Nix, he took the Denver Broncos at 1-2 to the next level. This team Definitely needed a standout performance from him. He got a lot of great preparation, according to Cortland Sutton, for this game, and now he delivered. He almost threw for 350 yards, and surely enough, it was a great win against the Bengals.
Yeah, big time win against the Bengals. The Bengals had more penalties than first downs. They're just struggling without Joe Burrow. This offensive line has not really got it together at all in Burrow's tenure. Obviously, he's hurt, but could not protect anybody. The Broncos' defense is that good. And yeah, Bo Nix is actually my fantasy quarterback, so I'm happy he put together a big performance for his Denver offense there and Sean Payton. And yeah, Denver's going to be a wild card team for sure if they can't win the division. In my opinion, the Chargers, Chiefs, and Broncos will battle in that division. So they kind of got screwed in that loss to the Colts. They really should have won that game on a kind of a bogus leverage penalty. But yeah, they're sitting at 2-2, and they're playing good ball.
They're playing good ball. Let's also look at the other Monday Night Football game. Jets take a hammering down at Hard Rock Stadium against the Miami Dolphins, who looked like they were competent offensively. Tyreek Hill, he went down with that gruesome leg injury. He he basically had it separated between that initial camera cut from ESPN and the second cut that had a closer look on it, as it looked like his knee, as was reported, was dislocated, and then the report actually came out. So what do you think the Jets were missing as it relates to just keeping pace with a lowly Dolphins team right now?
The Jets are never going to be in the conversation as a team that's going to, be ready for like playoff conversation, right? Like they've been through this so many times, firing coaches and this. Until the Jets actually put together a good roster and can compete. Like I like the roster they have. I think Aaron Glenn's a good coach, but you know what I mean when I say like the Jets are the Jets. Like we can't expect them to suddenly get good. Like we have to see them take building steps. And for the Dolphins, that was a big time win. Obviously, sad news for Tyreek Hill. Wish him the best with the surgery. I think, it went well. So he plans to be back for next season, but that was a big time loss. And Darren Waller looked like a big time X factor for the Dolphins. He had a good performance in his first game back since signing with them and that win. So yeah, for the Dolphins, they just got to continue to stack. Obviously losing one of your offensive weapons is huge. That means A-Chain and Waddle will have to step up. But we'll see if the Dolphins can continue to build. Like I think they're not dead. They're 1-3, but I still believe in Tua and this Dolphins team. Like I do think this team could potentially be a wild card team.
Well, let's also go into a couple other matchups as well. The Chiefs, are they fully out of their early season rut, at least considered rut for the supreme team of the AFC West? Are they done? And what Jay Harbaugh has to get this Ravens team out of right now?
I think the Ravens are just dealing with a lot of injuries there for John Harbaugh. I think Lamar is going to miss some time. They had 5 injuries on defense in that game against the Chiefs. I'm not going to say the Chiefs are all the way back, but it definitely helps when you have Xavier Worthy out there. He had a fantastic game this past weekend. So, you got Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. Like this team, they have talent, right? The Spagnuolo defense. The Chiefs are not dead. They're going to be in the mix. I don't know if they win the division. That's yet to be determined with that week 1 loss over in Brazil to the Chargers, but the Chiefs are the Chiefs. They'll be around come November, December.
Wouldn't be surprised if they made a run to the Super Bowl as a wild card team, especially given that all Mahomes has done. His playoff success began with a loss to Tom Brady in the snow in the AFC Championship game. If he can lead a team that deep at hardly 2 years removed from his tenure at Texas Tech, no reason not to believe he can take this team to unprecedented heights from a lower position as it relates to playoff success if the team ends up being a wild card. Also, in other news around the NFL, I mean, what a performance for the New York Giants with Jackson Dart getting his first career start. He makes that first touchdown pass in the second half. The Giants hold the Chargers to 18 points, and that's a 3-0 team that went into East Rutherford, New Jersey. So how do you think Dart did in his first start?
Thought he played well. I thought, I'm interested what Dable likes to run his quarterback a lot. I don't think you want to get your rookie quarterback hurt, but hopefully he'll be able to throw the ball more. But no, the defense played well. They got a phenomenal pass rush with Burns, Carter, and Thibodeau out there. So the Giants defense is tough up front. You know, Sucks for Malik Neighbors. That's injury was unfortunate, torn ACL. But I think Jackson Dart can get the Giants to 2-3 this weekend. They play the Saints, albeit on the road, but the Saints are just bad. I know they can make some plays with Rattler on offense, but I'm expecting the Giants to win that one as well.
That's a big game for the Giants, confidence boosting. Another game that gave one team in the Northeast a lot of confidence this weekend. The New England Patriots, Drake May, with a big performance for a team that needed a win. And it was a win that didn't have a lot of defense home. And that was the Carolina Panthers. Didn't compare whatsoever to the Patriots offense. That was a matchup to watch, and the Patriots won it mightily. How do you think that performance went for Drake May?
Look, I think Drake May, is going to be a really talented quarterback, and New England's got something going there with the Vrabel culture. There's 2-2. It looked like through the first couple games they committed a lot of turnovers. Didn't look like they were, quite ready to compete, but they bounced back. They're 2-2. A big one on Sunday night with the division rivals, the Patriots and Bills. So we'll see if this Patriots defense can contain Josh Allen. But Josh Allen's had his way with the Patriots. But even if the Patriots lose that, they're 2-3, and they got some promise going for the rest of the year.
I know Owen's been on the fence with Broadway Books, and particularly the Owening Line, about making single prop picks on Josh Allen over under 2 touchdowns. Owen, why don't you unfold what you're picking if it is Josh Allen that's involved with this week's round of picks?
We may have a Josh Allen play. We're not quite there yet for Sunday, but no. So far for college football, and we'll tweet out the parlay on the Broadway to Broadway account as well this weekend. We got Iowa State money line, the Cal Golden Bears money line against Duke. I think Duke, they played well the past 2 weeks, so that one may be tricky, but we like Cal. We like Virginia plus 6.5. We'll take the over 41.5 in the Texas-Florida game again. I can see these teams scoring some points. You say over in that one, that's crazy. Florida's good defense, Texas is good defense, and there's going to be some points scored in that one. And then the final play is Texas Tech minus 10.5. Again, I just think they're going to go into Houston and they're going to win this game by 2 touchdowns. I think Texas Tech is outside Iowa State are the 2 teams that could match up for that Big 12 championship right now. So that's all we got right now for Broadway Books. We'll tweet out the parlay on Saturday, and of course some NFL action for you. But another good Broadway to Broadway. Kind of a tough week last week, although we did call Alabama winning and Oregon as well. I told you I don't.
You told us. Quack quack in Happy Valley.
Yes, sir. I do not trust Drew Aller. So we'll see what happens when they face Ohio State later in the year. But those are the players for Broadway Books, and another good Saturday coming our way soon here as we hit Wednesday afternoon.
All right, be sure to keep checking Broadway to Broadway Twitter and Broadway to Broadway Instagram story, all managed by yours truly, Owen Kasanovich, for the best Owening Line picks, because he has you covered, especially with those Caesars odds. Owen loves Josh Allen prop picks. He'll take the over on 234.5 rushing yards and receiving yards any day for the former Wyoming quarterback and NFL MVP standout. Wyatt Copeland saying so long here for Owen Kasanovich. We talk to you next on Second Down Sunday, and stay tuned for Frontline Football later this afternoon. We wish you a great rest of your day here on Broadway to Broadway.